My name is Eugene Wright.
And I'm Doug Taylor.
And this is More Spiritual Than Lyrical, the conversation.
I love it.
Cool.
Thank you for the invite, brother.
Thank you, man. First off, I'm happy to have you here. And I know it's going to be people from both sides that watch this, right? You got your own following that's super familiar with you. I know they diehards, and I feel like I got the same for what I do. And this is like, it's not really an interview. It's just a conversation, right?
Just a conversation.
So feel free to ask me anything that comes to mind. I'm going to ask you questions that come to mind. But let's start with origin stories. Well, first off, let's get the shameless plug out the way. How this came about so everybody can know what's going on. I got an album coming out, shameless plug, and a book too.
And a book.
And a vinyl and a bunch of other stuff. Just follow me for that. But it's called More Spiritual Than Lyrical, right? So the idea of this album, in short, is that what I'm saying is more important than how I'm saying it. Like, I'm a very dope rapper. I'm a very dope wordsmith, if I say so myself.
I love it. Hey, if you don't say it, nobody may say it. You got to say it.
Exactly. So, and speaking of saying it, right, I think there's a lot that's unsaid because we operate in two totally different worlds. With you being a pastor, me being a rapper, these worlds don't always coexist unless it's quote unquote Christian rap. And I'm not necessarily a Christian rapper by trade. I don't see myself as that. I don't like the label or the box of it. But I am a rapper that's trying to be a better man in all fronts and realign with my faith, right? So I think that this gives us a conversation to say what's said and how we are similar, how we may not be the same, but what we can do in our respective fields in order to grow. That's what this whole process was for me of making the album. And why not, seek the counsel of, wisdom, seek wisdom in my counsel as I approach this album, stepping back into the rap world and just growing in life.
Yeah, well, I got to say, as a hip hop head, we talked about it earlier, hip hop being 50 years old. I'm 52, so I grew up with hip hop like a brother. I'm back in the old BDP days, Poor Righteous Teeth. I mean, that's what I grew up with, and so it's a part of me. And I'm a music junkie, and so I gotta say, after listening to the album, I gotta say I gotta agree with you. Pretty dope.
Thank you, man.
So it's some dope content. I sent you some of a couple of my favorites. Rap Don't Pay the Bills. That was pretty dope.
Hey.
And I know what's interesting is when you sent it to me, you was like, I know as a pastor you may not want to listen to it, but I got this philosophy that music of itself is amoral. It's neither good or bad. People don't understand that there are three types of music. You have sacred music, what we sing in church, directly pointed toward God. You have secular music that does not necessarily reflect God, but it doesn't mean that it's detrimental to a person's health. Thirdly, you have what's called profane. Profane is what's detrimental. Happy Birthday is a secular song. We sing it all the time.
Gotcha.
And so I think one of the things that people have to understand is, even when it comes to music, is even though you say you may not necessarily be a Christian rapper, it's still not profane. You see what I'm saying? And so I was like, I can hear something in this. I can listen to this and don't feel like I've betrayed my faith. I'm not looking around to see, hey, who gonna hear the preacher listen to this, because it's not only your expression, but I gotta say, even after looking at the book, it also is not just an expression of who you are, but it shows the evolution of who you are. And I think that's what's important, listening to artists long term, to not just see that this is your expression, but are you evolving as a person?
Yes.
And so I appreciated it, man. I appreciate being invited to be a part of the conversation, letting me hear it before it got released. No, it's dope, bro. It's dope, and proud of you for doing it.
Thank you, man. So I'm glad we got the why we are here. Let's dive into how we got here, right?
Okay.
And you were specifically like, I think from the time that I finished this up and I listened to it in full, it was like, I want to express these thoughts and details, because there's always more than what can be said in a 45-minute album,
sure,
right? But it was like, when you talk about evolution and like evolving as a person, as a man in general, the cool thing about you that made me comfortable with becoming a partner, at the church and having you as my pastor, was that we have similar origin stories. We come from the same environment.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that I always try to keep in mind, especially with, with what I do now, even when I work with students or I work with younger kids or I work with younger artists, like give them time to grow and evolve. And more often than not, I know that I can be looked at as the example to evolve to, but I'm only able to show where I'm at currently. Whereas when I look at you, it's like, oh, this is a man that came from my environment and I have something to look at to evolve to further. Now, I ain't saying I'm gonna be a pastor, but I got something that I can look forward to grow and develop just to be a better person. You know what I mean? So I think that's important to have that, like I said, that counsel and those examples ahead. So I think it helps bridge the generation gap too. But I guess for the origin, tell me what it was like growing up from the west side of Birmingham in your perspective.
So I tell people I'm a native of Birmingham. I've lived in Winona, lived in Titusville and Woodland. So I got a trifecta of all three hoods. I can hang out on the west side, I can hang out on the east side, south side. So, I've been all around it. But I grew up in an environment, and you're familiar with Winona, that there were some really, really good families. Really, really good people there. When I was growing up, that's when the crack epidemic was evolving, was expanding. So, I watched a lot of my childhood heroes get addicted to drugs. I grew up in an environment where my father was an alcoholic, and so I grew up watching domestic violence like every night, 5 days out of 7, and so I saw firsthand how the pressures of life, if you don't manage them properly, will crush a person. Pressures of life turned my father into somebody that I ain't even recognized. And so having this level of having this dichotomy of seeing these progress, problems, and just in an environment that I got to make a decision, which am I going to gravitate to? How am I going to handle this? How am I going to turn this experience into stepping stones? I even tell you this, I talked about starting an entrepreneurship journey at nine years old. It was because I had to, I ain't have all my lunch money.
Right. Hustler's mentality.
You had to get it. And so even with the struggles and the challenges that came in those environments, man, I appreciate who they turned me into, because as we said earlier, I think I learned way more in struggles than I learned in successes.
Very true. I agree. I think what you say, you came up during the start and like the beginning of the crack epidemic or crack era, however we want to label that situation. I like to think I came up in the glorification of it. Being born in the 80s and raised in the 90s. It's kind of like, hip hop went from being this cool, from my research and hindsight, of course, from this cool thing of like, Public Enemy, Fight the Power, to NWA, niggas with attitude. It's our podcast.
Yeah.
Gotta be clean.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try to be clean out of respect. But
I appreciate it. No, it's your podcast. I'm on your stage. Come on.
But yeah, coming up with like it transitioning into like gangster rap and drug dealer rap, and being a fan of it, like not being young enough to really disseminate it. The Cash Money, No Limit, like coming up in that era, and like it was really about like hip hop music glorified it, but I also lived in the remnants of it where people, they knew the rules and they knew the effects of it, but it was like, what, this is a situation, let's play the game. So now it's uncles and homies that deal, sell, or it's other people that use, and it's like, I just gotta survive this. The thing I know is for a fact is that when I step outside my door, it don't look nothing like what's on TV. Yeah. You know what I mean? It don't look like Pleasant Grove on the Power Rangers. It don't look like Saved by the Bell. The closest thing is Lean on Me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, where's this world that's on TV? I don't see spring bling, ain't no beaches in Birmingham. Like nothing on TV resembled what I actually lived through in my mind. So for me, it was like, just survive it. But in the midst of that survival, it was like, I gotta have an outlet or an expression. I see rappers are successful as a kid. I'm not that good at basketball or football. So it's like, what's the alternative? But then that becoming a form of expression, a form of, confidence, a space of like journaling or whatever it was. And don't get it twisted, I ain't always been enlightened. In high school I was making the same type of records I heard on the radio.
I was buying them.
It was. It took me getting out of Birmingham when I went to college, and then that gave me the ease of not having to live underneath the pressure of the neighborhood, and like, having like, oh, I got 1 or 2 serious songs that I put emotion in. Let me try these at the poetry club events. It's in college. It's something to do. Yeah. And then knowing like, oh, people actually care about what I say. Let me dive deeper into that. But getting out of the environment is what allowed for me to release, find myself, and then be able to look back at the environment and be like, yo, we survived that. Like, but I also need to go back because there's more people that got to endure that. And now I got family there. I got cousins there. I got brothers, sisters. And it's like, yo, it don't got to be like this.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
absolutely. For
me, I think that was my transition of how Birmingham molded me and helped shape me into finding this path as a rapper, and then understanding like, oh, I don't have that. That's saying when you talk about the pressures of the environment, I was able to get out of the pressure.
Absolutely.
To find myself, and then was able to step back in the environment to handle it properly. But I didn't come right back after college. I stayed away for like 6-7 years. Like, let me fully grow into an adult before I dive into that.
I think that's important. I tell parents all the time, I know college is not for everybody. So I'm not naive enough to believe that everybody is going to get a college degree.
Oh no, I definitely didn't. I just stayed out of Birmingham.
You know what I'm saying? But I do think it's important. There's a real benefit of every high school graduate. I think there's a benefit of having at least 1 semester away in college.
Yeah.
Because you need that time away, like you talked about being separated from your environment. You need that time away to develop your own identity. It creates a certain level of, parents do it right, a certain level of independence and resilience that these students need. The other thing too is you get to explore, really find out how disciplined you are. Mm-hmm. Because in high school, they're keeping track of your attendance. When you get to college, if you don't go, you don't go. And so it determines, are you really a disciplined person or are you a controlled person?
Gotcha.
You went to school you went to high school because your parents controlled you, told you to go. Now, when you go in college, it's because you're disciplined. There's a totally different level of freedom in discipline and control. But then I think the one of the most important things is you get, like you said, to see other people in other environments. And there's still some elements of my upbringing that I hold on to. But I see that there's some other areas that are in me that nobody in my neighborhood had, and they may have killed it. They may have told me it was wrong. Well, it wasn't wrong. It just wasn't regular on Powell Avenue, but it's not wrong. And so having this cadre of cultures helps to really define who I am as an individual. It shows up in your music. It shows up in my preaching. It shows up in my parenting, just to really be able to have a broader environment to really explore different possibilities, find out who I really am. And I think that's really, really cool.
Thank you, man. And because it was definitely that for me too. And when you mentioned that, right, like you was on Powell Avenue, I was on Powderly Avenue. So it was like, I probably was the most ambition person in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Yeah. When people was putting up, vote for me for homecoming queen. Yeah. I was in high school, like new mixtape drop. I'm putting my poster on the wall. Like, you know what I mean? So that drive and that ambition is what ultimately led me to just even want to get to Huntsville, Alabama, because I knew people, like, if I got to go to college to get out of the chaos that I'm in now, I didn't go right out of high school. I waited like 6 months, and then it was like, you know what, the street stuff is getting wild, I gotta go. So I went. It was like, if I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go here because I know it's a music scene here. But I think being in college, right, when you talk about that discipline, like, are you that disciplined of a person? I think I can see how my environment hindered me in college, because it was like, I was always book smart in high school, Sure. Could have graduated magna cum laude, summa cum laude. I probably was like third just because of senioritis. But when I got to college, it was like, I'm gonna go for something I love if I gotta pay for it. And if I'm gonna take up telecom and film and production and stuff like that, why do I gotta sit here in a history class learning about 1870 history? It didn't make sense to me, because it was like, if I'm gonna pay to learn something, I'm gonna learn what I want to learn. And it was like, all this other unnecessary stuff, nah. Because I had internships my freshman year, and I got offered the job, and they was like, well, you got to have a degree, but you want me to have a degree to make $20,000 a year? That's crazy work. I make more than that now. So it was just like, you know what?
This is math. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave college and I'm gonna take my chances in the real world. But that discipline showed up in my craft, because it was like, it doesn't matter what I got to do, whether I need to work in corporate America for 40 hours a week and work my way up the ladder and house myself, house my rap team at the time. I housed everybody in Huntsville.
You had a rap team?
Yeah, a whole crew.
Hype man and everything.
Hey man, they all successful to this day too.
Really?
So I'm not mad at it at all. I got a homie that just wrote a self-help journey, a homie that did the soundtrack for They Clone Tyrone, another homie who has like a 15-piece band that does touring, another homegirl who signed in LA. Like, no, my music friends are successful, and I know that's all products of like how disciplined I was and how driven I was. I know that became infectious in all of us in our different spaces. But like that discipline allowed me to maintain the household, maintain bills, make sure I, handle things properly enough to keep myself alive on a day-to-day basis, but also invest in the dream. And like, it was to the point where they gave me sleep interventions. Like, you don't sleep, you're a maniac. You get off work and work from midnight until 7 in the morning, and that's not healthy. Like, my team would talk to me like that.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that kind of clicked for me when purpose within the craft got redefined was that there was this moment where it was like 25 versus 50. My dad turned 50 and I turned 25, and our birthday was around the same time.
Okay.
They had a cake there, and it had like him on one side and me on the other side, right? And it says 25 versus 50. And I'm looking at this cake and I'm having a mental breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Like, my dad is 50 and I'm turning 25. That means my dad was 25 when he had me.
Yeah.
I'm not even the oldest, so he had like 2 kids, a house, a family, a car, and I'm out here chasing a rap dream. Like, I've missed something along the way, right? So, and honestly, looking back at it, it's like, I really didn't miss nothing. My timing is just different. I see that now, but it was like, oh, I got to get away from chasing this rap dream and sacrificing everything for it, because there are things that are more important. And I think that shift is what brought me back to Birmingham. It's what allowed me to have purpose, whether that's the work I do in the community, the organizations I partner with, what I talk about in my music, like actually being that in real life. It gave me purpose, because I realized like, oh, wow, like my dad has a life full of love, and it's more people here at this party for him than it is for me, and they threw a party for both of us. And he's 50 with majority of the people here, and I'm 25 with just my closest friends who are all musicians, and I love them. But it shows that I'm missing something in life. You got kids, family, all of this, and I'm like, I'm not even started on that path yet.
Yeah.
So I think that was my turning point to like put purpose into what it is that I do. Like, I've always been trying to grow and be true to myself in music, but that gave me a different urgency of purpose when I turned 25. Yeah. What was that moment like for you that was like, that led you to be where you are now, if you can remember that? I mean, I've heard some stories like, watching the rim and hearing the voice, but like, what was your initial spark or moment that,
Well, two things I talk about. One is I want to give you another perspective on your 25 versus 50, because it's merging 2 different generations.
Right.
So I'm 52, said it before. My son is 23. And so he took a job in Orlando after he graduated, just about 2 years ago. And I told him, I said, hey, I don't think that's going to be a good job for you. I was like, whatever you decide to do, I'm going to support you. I was like, but he told me what the job was and, what they were going to pay. And I'm like, making that in Orlando, that ain't no money in Orlando. Your money stretch further here in Birmingham, but you do what you want to do. And we had a conversation. I supported what he was doing. But what I told him is, I said, you're different than me. You guys are a different generation. I said, when I started working, I was chasing a paycheck. You're wired to chase purpose. I said, I was looking for the 1st and 15th. You looking for fulfillment. And this job is not going to bring you fulfillment. And it was not a year later, he was like, Dad, this is killing me. He was like, I can't do this. Had a little bit of a breakdown. Because what I told him is, and now he's back, he's started a business, he's working at our nonprofit, works at church, and he's much more fulfilled now because, again, it took me years to think about fulfillment and purpose. Right. I was thinking about paycheck. Exactly. I'm trying to keep the lights on. And so the generation that me and your dad are from, our view was much more limited. Get a job, pay bills, raise your family. We weren't thinking about, am I going to end my life feeling like I made a difference? We're trying to make $1. And so it's a testament to your dad's input and involvement to put you in a scenario that you're thinking about fulfillment and purpose, not just getting paid. So shout out to your dad, man.
Yeah, shout out to
50
him.
generations are great.
Yeah, Big Gene is the truth.
Yeah.
So shout out to him and shout out to my mom.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, so like, what was your spark or moment that led you to be like, you know what? Because I mean, with me, that was the moment like, I'm gonna rap with purpose. I'm not chasing the deal. I'm rapping to touch some souls and touch some lives and make an impact. What was that moment that put you there for like, you know, for being a pastor and teaching?
So I actually never wanted to pastor. I never wanted to preach. I preached my first sermon when I was 12. I told my pastor, I was like, hey, I got a lesson. I'm not a preacher. Let me preach to the youth day. When I was like 17, I always knew God was real, and I would hear his voice. And I was like, hey, I got a sermon, a little lesson. I said, I ain't called to preach. And so I was in my mid-20s. No, early 20s, like 20. All my friends now, we be doing road trips, and everybody in the car, we all high, we all drunk. They passed out. I had the highest tolerance level, so I was always a designated driver, even though I shouldn't have been driving. But while everybody is like high and drunk, I would find myself, I'm praying, talking to God the whole time. I'm like, I know this ain't what I'm supposed to be. And so, and I know you have more fun. I always knew that he was real. The regular story, I was, all the stuff that they did in my neighborhood, I did. I just didn't get caught because I was, I went to school, I had a job. And so I was 20, buddy of mine, and I always knew God wanted something for me. This is crazy. We had to doing everything in the world. I had a dream one night, and I had a dream. In the dream, me and all my buddies were running around the city. We're robbing, we're stealing, we're shooting guns, just robbing our stuff. And we all get back to the hideout, put all the loot on the table, and we laughing and drinking, and they all turn around and they pull their guns on me and they say, you're not supposed to be here. You're not one of us. And I was like, whoa. I woke up and I'm like, this ain't, even though I'm good at it, this ain't who I am.
Right.
And that started me on this other journey of realizing there was more to my life than what I thought. A series of events, meeting my wife. I met my wife when I was on a humbug, wasn't even looking. When I met my wife, I had a girl living with me and she was engaged to a guy. I met her on the humbug. I was like, that's a real woman. She graduated college. She out of your league. And I'm like, no such thing. Man, I had a full head of hair. I was a size 32 in the waist. I'm like, no such thing is out of my league. And so we swapped numbers. I talked to her at night till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And everything every argument I was having with my girlfriend, she would just call and she would say something totally different. And it was just pouring into who I was. And she made it easy for me to walk out my path. At the time I met her, you can tell there's so many things that along the way that helped this. I got arrested. I was on the way. I was arrested. I was 20 years old. The judge told me, he said, you are the stupidest smart guy I've ever seen. He was like, he had my transcript. No, it was crazy. He said, I was going to Tuskegee. I was a student at Tuskegee. Got arrested when I came home on a summer break. I was working at what used to be First Alabama Bank doing taxes. I'm in my 20s, bro. I'm killing. I'm 20, and the guy said, you're the stupidest smart person I've ever met. There's no reason for you to be here. He was like, you are only here because you want to be. He's like, I did my research. I know who your parents are, all this stuff. And he said, I'm gonna make an example of you. And I got home and I told God, I said, God, if you get me out of this, you got to worry about me no more. I promise you get me out of this. Thankfully, I was 20. I was able to get a youthful offender charge. So my records were sealed. And so after that, I made God one of those, what they call jailhouse promises.
Yeah.
But I kept it because I already had this foundation knowing he was real. And so, yeah. And last thing is what really pushed me on this, when I really started digging into the Bible, and I think this is dope, I saw how practical the Bible was. I think that's a big deal. So I never wanted to be a pastor, but I fell in love with this word. Everything I learned, I never went to business school until recently when I, got my MBA. But everything I learned about needing to be a father, because I didn't have a great father. Everything I need to know about a father, I found in the Bible. I didn't have a successful entrepreneur coach. I saw entrepreneurship and managing money in the Bible. I saw how to be a husband. And so I saw that I can take this Bible and pour from it things and not just get me to heaven, but that's going to help me while I'm here. Bro, I'm sold on it. Nobody will ever pull me off this because this Bible has changed my life. The principles in it. And people want the principles of Jesus and don't want the person of Jesus. But the principles still work.
Gotcha. And I think that's a big part of like the reason I rock with you so heavy too is because like even the way you speak about that in a practical manner, like actual tangible steps that can be done to apply this. It's not like, and granted, I understand the process. We are not Faith University too. I understand the process of faith and having confidence in the unseen, unknowable, and being in that realm too, but also on a day-to-day level to cultivate peace in your life. There are practical things that you can do, and I think I really love the fact that you teach it that way. It isn't always just, hey, this is what happened. You believe it or you don't believe it. You're going to hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't sound like mystified voodoo. Like it's like
mystified voodoo.
Yeah, you know, you teach it in a very real way, like day to day, this is how this shows up. And I think that helps translate it into, for me, that's what works for me when I'm listening to you teach lessons. That's a reason why I joined the church, you know, and I'm okay with having this conversation and speaking with you. So
I'm humble, man. I really am.
Thank you, man.
I grew up, you've heard this story, but the denominational church I grew up in at this time, when I first started preaching, late 90s, I think, you either had to be able to hoop or sing. And I could not and cannot do either. I never forget, bro, I was preaching.
I feel seen now. Can't hoop or sing.
Can't hoop or sing. Bro, so I'm preaching one Sunday, and I got all my little points laid out, and this old lady put her finger, she said, let me up out this mess. And said it loud. Walked out in the middle of my sermon. Bro, I go home, I'm a young preacher, I'm like, God, if you want me, I'll do what you want me to do, but if you want me to preach, you're going to have to teach me to hoop or teach me to sing. And I heard the Lord, bro. As sure as day, I heard him like I hear you talking. He said, I have not called you to do either, and I will not. He said, I've called you to teach my people how to live. This was in the 90s. He said, teach my people how to live. And so from that day to this, my whole goal is, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's with entrepreneur coaching, whether it's with mentoring or discipling men or in the pulpit, I want to teach people something that's going to cause them to not just exist, but live, to thrive. What am I going to extrapolate from this that I can use in my everyday life? And so every time I talk to anybody, I tell people when I get to heaven, I want people to say, God, thank you for letting me meet Doug Taylor. That's my regular prayer. I want people to say, I'm better because I met that dude.
And I can co-sign that for sure.
Bro, I appreciate you. No, that means a lot for real.
If you haven't heard, the Sit Down Sessions is a one-of-a-kind experience started right here in Birmingham. Come out to hear some of the best talents in the city as we provide you with lyrics and highlighters to choose your favorite lines and ask the creators themselves what it all means. We have a dope lineup with sounds by the Phasing Octopus, G.I. Magus as the host, along with special guests Specs the Great and Seven Rich. Can't forget about myself. My name is Eugene Wright, and we'll not only be celebrating my birthday, but the release of my new album and book, More Spiritual Than Lyrical. Advance tickets are $20 and includes lyrics, seating, and the Sankofa Suite gear bundle. For those that want to level up their experience, the Plus Pack gets an included copy of the new book and CD. The Max Pack gets you an additional book for the Ubis Cube and official art poster, while the Ultra Pack gets everything mentioned, plus a t-shirt, hat, and the album on vinyl. We may have to ship that to you. So get your tickets now and pull up to the Greenhouse at 602 19th Street, Ensley on Friday, September 5th. Can't wait to see you at the Sit Down Sessions for More Spiritual Than Lyrical, brought to you by The Flourish and Sankofa Suite, a creative culture company.